Black revolutionaries, distillery owners, Italian fashion retailers, and Motown Grammy winners all share their best stories never before told in any other media outlets on Detroit is Different. Visit DetroitisDifferent.com or download the Detroit is Different app on Apple's App Store or Google's Play Store.
Just making sure that I got your face on that camera and everything.
Okay.
But you said your uncles came up here first.
Yeah, uncle and aunt, sister
Uncle
and
and
brother. Yep, and then
From-
my father, from my father's side.
What part? Where did they come from?
Oh, Alabama, Oxford, Alabama, and Anniston, Alabama.
Okay, now I'm big on this whole Detroit Black history.
Okay.
Because I don't know if you've known this, as I ask most people, it is 3 primary states where people come from. It seems like black folks, the Great Migration. It's Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia when it comes to Detroit.
Okay.
Different states, obviously, for like different cities, like Cleveland or Chicago or Pittsburgh or whatever. But also, some of those states kind of settled in different neighborhoods. Like Black Bottom kind of had like its old Alabama corner and everything. So whereabouts do you know your uncle settled when he first got this way?
They all settled in, I don't know if there's like a particular name of the neighborhood, you know? I think, well, we're in like the Davison, Dexter, Linwood area, so I don't know what you call that, but that's where we are, and that's where we still are. That's where my parents are, and that's where my uncle and aunt's house still is. Yep.
Okay, so like Central's neighborhood.
Central High School. Yep, that's where I went.
Okay. All right. Northwestern, so I will not hold that against you. Now, as we talk about Central and coming here in the 60s, that's the neighborhood where the rebellion took place.
Correct.
So what year did your uncle get here, and did they like kind of ran right into everything? Is like really also that neighborhood was, as it's really kind of this neighborhood itself it was sitting in, but that neighborhood was transitioning fast from a completely Jewish community to a black community.
So they got here after the rebellion was over, maybe by a year and a half after. Okay.
And being that they were blocks away from it, your uncle just looked at it like, I don't care.
I don't know I really don't think that they had the awareness of what occurred prior. I really don't, because
it was just like, wow,
property
is cheap right here.
I really do think that's what it was. And also where their location of the schools that they were teaching. So my aunt was a teacher, and so is my father. So I really do think that it was location was close to the schools that they were teaching at, and that's what really made them pick this area. I don't think they had any clue that the riot or rebellion happened so close to where they were.
Okay. As you talk about no clue about that, let's talk a little bit more about Alabama itself. Have you ever been to the hometown where your family's from?
Yeah. When we were younger, we used to do family reunions a lot more. I even got a chance to go to my grandparents' 50th wedding. They renewed their vows, which was like an amazing experience to be a part of that. And just meeting your cousins sometimes, because we were in the Midwest and they're in the South. You probably never met them, and then you finally get to see people that look like you, got the same last name as you, and all of that. So, and seeing how they live compared to how you live, and it was that those were good experiences. And as you get older, we start going to college, and everybody started going to these other states. The family reunions kind of dwindled out. But we got to go there and really see where the folks lived and how they lived. Yep.
All right, so you're talking about where and how they lived.
Yeah.
Small town, larger city. What was the feel of it?
So my dad's from Oxford, and at that time it was an outskirt of Anniston, so it was a lot more rural than Anniston, which was more urban.
Okay.
And so my dad's family house was on like acres of land. Like you literally could not see where this land ended.
Okay.
And this little house on these like blocks, they were sitting up off of the ground. And
as they called it, like those shotgun houses.
It was probably bigger than a shotgun. It was a little bit. It was a little bit big. Yeah, it was a lot bit bigger than a shotgun.
A shotgun
but
crib. Okay.
Being on that much land, it just made it seem so small. And knowing that my parent, at least one of my parents, lived on that much land, it was just a different thought process. Because what you were learning was what you learned about the South from the books, but to go there and see, this is where, this was my parents' experience, right? It was a little different than what I read in the books and what I,
when you talk about that, so on that land, was it a lot of farming? Was it agricultural? What was the lay of the land? What were they doing with all the land?
I'm not real sure. I'm pretty sure it was more dairy, but at that point there was nothing there but the land and the house. So there was no more farming happening with my folks at that point. But there was definitely a lot of land there, and there were certain things that they still had to do as we have our refrigerators and we have all these different things and technology in our house that my parents didn't grow up with. So part of that land was probably those types of things, like a ice house and those kind of things. So yeah, but when we went there, it was really the house and a lot of land, and it that really blew my mind, and I think it also blew away my siblings to see all of that.
Okay, your mom. Where's your mom from?
My mom's from Anniston, and she had a different type of upbringing. Though definitely still some farming and all that, but they moved around a lot more than my dad did. My dad, they tend to stay in that one location. But as far as my mom, there's these streets they were named after alphabets, A, B, C, D, E, F, all that. And she used to say, I think we lived on every single street, alphabet street, in Anniston when she grew up. So just saying how many times they ended up moving. Yeah. Definitely different experience than my dad, but they all went to the same county school. They all, that's how they met, and that's how they met.
So in meeting, coming here, being married, and then moving to Detroit, as they say, like the people Detroit
compared to Detroit. Yeah.
You said it. No, your country.
Yeah, a little bit country there.
So moving to Detroit, you said your dad was a teacher.
Yeah, he's a teacher.
Black man teaching.
Yeah.
In what era? In the 60s?
Actually, it by the 70s. So he
started in the 70s.
Yeah,
so
he was a Vietnam vet, and then he started teaching here in the 70s. Actually, at Durfee Middle School, which I went to.
Right down the street.
Right. Thank God I missed that whole point of him being in the same.
I was gonna say your dad was. Oh man, it was like no fun for you.
Yeah, he was at a different school by the time I went to Durfee, but from Durfee Middle School, and then he ended up at Post Middle School, which is where he spent the rest of his time.
So I'm guessing when your dad rides around, it's so rare to see a black man teach.
Yeah.
In public schools, but I can imagine in the 70s or 80s, it was really rare. So like you may just be like anywhere with your dad and somebody walk up like, Mr. Jackson.
That is like, absolutely the experience. They called him.
I remember when you kicked me out of school.
Oh man. Yeah, that's absolutely the experience. They called him Jack, and I mean, I'm telling you, everywhere we would go, hey, is Jack your dad? Like, yep. Did he whoop you too? Like, nope, because I had better sense to want to make that brother mad or do anything. Right? No, I live with the brother, so I know not to.
I knew what was up.
Right.
I knew what was up. The foolishness you were doing.
Right. But even recently, maybe in the last year, there was a celebration at his church where students from years and years that he taught came to just go to church with him one Sunday. So,
wow.
Yeah. I think being a teacher, being a man, and being a black man, English teacher on top of that, that was very unique.
Yeah, I mean, so unique. I have a uncle in Chicago.
Okay.
At oh man, for years on the south side of Chicago at Dunbar, he was an assistant principal, then became a principal. My uncle Edgar, he's 97 now.
Wow.
But to this day, like, it's so many people because it was just so rare to see any black man in any capacity involved in schools.
Right.
But so like through some of the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s.
Yep.
But even to this day, it's very few black men that you see in teaching capacities.
Yep.
I can definitely think of my school journey. Like, let's talk about middle school.
Yeah.
It was in Halle. Halle's a magnet school.
Okay.
But throughout Halle, I want to say Mr. Nabechi. And the basketball coach, Coach Hall. It was two black men other than the principal. And it's so weird, like, institutions sometimes end up like that. So like the administrator will be a black man but everything else is run by women.
Yeah. Yep. That's pretty true. I mean, I find that in government institutions, and you definitely find that in education. And education, I even mean libraries, schools, all of that. That tends to be the pattern that we're seeing.
Yeah, and it's impactful because at those ages, especially like middle school, just having the role and the presence of a man that's conducting himself in a way that it challenges your perspective,
right?
Because a woman definitely can wield the discipline.
Oh, absolutely.
Of young men, but it's just a different presence when a man walks up to you and is like, "Hey."
I mean, it's the same for a woman or a girl to have a male presence in discipline or anything else. I mean, I think it's important to have both male, female experience, or see role models, I guess you want to call them, growing up seeing that and seeing them in different types of experiences, whether they are administrative or a teacher like my dad was.
Okay, so as you're talking a little bit about your dad, what was your mom doing when she made her way to Detroit?
Oh, wow. So my mom ended up being a housewife, but also a minister.
Wow.
Which is definitely unique to have a minister as a mom and
at the time
teacher as a dad.
The same thing about the black male teacher.
Yeah.
In that era, the woman minister.
It's not,
in that era, and just like the black male teacher, it's still not very prevalent to this day.
Right.
It's rare to even see a woman, especially in the black church.
Yeah, and we were definitely in the black church.
To get access to speak.
And the great thing too is, so her being a minister, but we also attended a church where the pastor was a woman, like doctorate and all of that. So of course I didn't know till I got older that was a unique experience.
So you were like living in it, and you just were thinking like, oh,
no, everybody do this.
That's just pastor. What church?
The name of it was New Creation Church. It was apostolic. It used to be. It's still there on Greenfield near Puritan. Of course, our pastor passed away some time ago, but I had no clue.
You can say her name.
Oh, her name was Reverend Lottie Glenn Ritchie. And beautiful spirit. Learned a lot about just being a spiritual person, and definitely the elegance of a woman. I definitely learned by seeing her every Sunday.
And in that realm, as people talk, we think of really one of the most iconic voices of anything and everything Detroit, and her name should always be shouted whenever we can. But Martha Jean the Queen, when we think of a woman definitely yielding the faith,
Yeah.
the spirit, raising people's optimism.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
I really enjoyed, I mean, I had my challenges with church as I grew up, but I enjoyed that I had no clue of the uniqueness of what I was growing up in. I enjoyed that seeing her doing what men do and doing it so eloquently. What I loved is that we do have preachers in here in the world that were what they call called, but there are also those that have been called to this, but have also taken the time to get the education too. And she had that doctor in front of her name. So you couldn't
theology.
Yes. So you couldn't deny
storefront preaching, as they say. And Papa was a Rolling Stone.
I'm pretty sure she did her storefronts, but you can't deny what she was. So that was, as I grew up, I really appreciated that a lot more. And then my mom being a minister too, and really learning. I mean, seeing her study, it wasn't that even to this day, studying not just the one book, but studying several different books from several different places to understand the history, the spirituality, as well as the religion. And I think that's important.
Okay.
Yeah.
So growing up with the word and someone from a military background,
yes,
I can only imagine,
man,
the strict nature of that household. You all probably up on like Saturday at 6 a.m. doing chores.
Yeah. Probably not 6. But not too far off from that, man.
It was like, look,
you gotta do this, then you can watch your cartoons.
Exactly.
It's that kind of thing. At least, but we did get to watch the cartoons, so it wasn't all bad.
Gotta go watch this Bugs Bunny.
Right. Scooby-Doo.
So with that, I'm talking about your creativity. As when did things spark for you in this structure of like of having parents that were more in disciplinary roles, of like something far from what people tie together as creativity?
And that's the strangest thing. So I've always drawn. I can remember from being 5. I always drawn from there, and my parents, I never really played with dolls and things like that. They would buy me what they would call art kits, which would be these packages with crayons and paint, and I remember that. I never really got dolls, because I think they saw what you liked and they bought those things. And even and they were really big about us doing extracurricular activities, so all of us know how to play instruments.
What was your instrument that you liked most growing up?
I played. Well, I started with strings, but I ended up with woodwind. So clarinet is what I love. But and all of that, I think, just made us more well-rounded people. But to answer the question, I've drawn since I was 5. And I kept doing it until, you get in middle school, you get too cool for school, and you kind of stop doing certain things. But I went back to it as I got older.
Do you have any of those original pieces that you did?
I'm pretty sure my mom probably got some.
But you don't have anything like...
No, I don't, You
don't have like Sunny Day from 6?
My mom kept things, and even to this day, I'm not one to keep things. She does, so I'm pretty sure she might have an original Donna Jackson somewhere.
Let's talk a little bit about that. Is it in your creative flow? You say you're not one to keep things even to this day. Yeah. What is it about the process of not wanting to hold on? Like, what has you there?
Well, let me say this. I am quite a minimalist. I just don't like a lot of things around me. But when it comes to my paintings now, I do tend to keep those more so, because I'm not painting to sell or painting to I'm not painting to sell or to become a artist in that respect. I'm painting as this almost therapy, getting to know who I am, getting to know the world around me, and I'm just doing that. And and then the other thing is, I mean, when you have a day job, your art doesn't have to feed you. So some people like myself tend to look at art not as a way to income right now. So it's almost like a luxury to really use it to get to know me. So yes, I do not like a lot of things around me. I do tend not to keep a lot of things, but the art right now, I do, because I'm still trying to figure out me.
Okay, minimalist.
Absolutely.
As you talk a little bit about that, and I'm jumping the gun on a lot of your life story, 'cause I'm going straight into this because you brought it up.
Yeah.
I watched like a little a Netflix documentary about like minimalism, and this guy that was like, I'm just gonna live on,
like 2 shirts and 1 pair of pants,
something like that. What even led you into the theory of like less is more?
I kind of think that something that holds us, or kind of the need of having things, I just think is kind of I think it's a controlling mechanism, and I think the less things that you have actually creates a value of the things you do have. That's one. And I just think, I mean, if you look at other parts of the world where people, you don't need a lot to live. You don't. I think America and our consuming has created this kind of world where, I want the newest, I want the hottest, I want all this stuff, and I just think it really clutters your mind, it clutters your thoughts, it clutters your life. I mean, and some of us, you can't even pick up and go because you got so much stuff, you got so many things that you think are valuable, and I just don't want to be stuck somewhere because of the value of some things that really you can't take with you when you transition out of this world. Where is that stuff going to be? It's going to be right here.
I'm going out like King Tut. They're going to bury. I'm just
you're going to get a big old.
They're going to bury me with my camera. Like, did you see on Instagram? It was a pretty popular meme right now, going around maybe like 2 weeks ago. It was like a guy that died. They had him like playing the Xbox 360.
Oh wow!
And like he was in like some sneakers and a jersey with a do-rag.
I can say this.
It was like one of the most like, this is like a social statement of on so many layers, and it was artistic to me just looking at it. Most people were laughing at it,
right?
But I was just like, man, this is it. Went like, sometimes I find art due to the expression of it, and who he was,
right,
and what that captured, because the intentionality of whoever set that up for him, whoever specifically was picking like all of these different items.
That's
like
crazy.
I was just looking at it like, this is like art to me.
That's crazy. I don't want to be that dude. I don't. I kind of want to. I don't want to. Gandhi was definitely a minimalist. That's an extreme I haven't gotten to, but I don't want to be controlled by stuff either. So, and I like coming into my house and my space, and it's open, and that means as a creative person, you kind of need it. I don't know if it's psychological or whatever. It almost feels like that space helps me think. That space helps me see. And I think the more stuff that I would have in that space, I don't think I could have that now. But there's other times where I need to go to museums or go to a bar or a cafe or even to my parents' house to get inspiration.
But your fortress of solitude needs to be in a space with less.
Absolutely.
And you're like me. You experienced the in excess 80s.
Yeah.
Where it was like, we want more. It's about more.
Yep.
The best pair of shoes I have is the one at the store that I ain't bought yet.
Right.
Like that theory.
Right. Yep. That's the time I grew up in, and having parents that, to go back to them, that did not allow us to fall into the I see all that stuff, but this is where we at kind of thing. Like, if you want that, you're going to have to go get a job and get it yourself. We're not getting those things for you. There's some things, like Christmas comes, and they like, okay, make that Christmas list, and you might get one or two of them. But they didn't want you to value that, And now I appreciate it. I think I appreciate it, period, because I wasn't all into all of that. I like Adidas and Pumas. I get it, but I wasn't all into, I gotta get the colors. Remember the Levi jeans that were the different colors? I wasn't into that. So I think the minimal bug was always there, and I just got older, and I was like, this is the kind of life I want to live. Yeah. That's
it in young person culture. When you're walking through Meijer, Kmart, or Target and say, I'm about to buy some jeans from these people, you have crossed the line. And you find yourself like, okay, the pockets aren't as deep, but I'm getting some new pants.
Yeah, I do like quality things. I have to say that. I mean, I'll do the thrift shop things, but I'll also go and get something from a higher, but that's my quality. I don't think I have to.
You're not defining your quality based
on what they said in the trend is the hottest thing is what I want. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about that process. Just being at Central High School. Central High School, America's first public one.
That's correct.
And definitely a staple in this community, neighborhood.
Right.
What was Central like for you?
So let me say this. So I love the experience. I mean, many people thought that I was going to go to like Cass Tech or Renaissance and all that, and there was something a rebellion in me. I was like, I don't think I have to, as a smart intellectual kid, have to go to those schools to get the education I wanted.
It's a bunch of Cass technicians like, what you talking about?
It's
right
okay.
Now?
I mean, I have some Cass technicians that I love, but
as I travel the states, and I run into other black people,
right? Yeah,
it's always generally somebody from Renaissance or Cass. It's rare that I see my Northwestern people. It's like, what situation have you gotten yourself into?
I mean, even when I was in college, I would the assumption was I tell them I'm from Detroit, and they assumed I went to Cass Tech, and that was a wrong assumption. So I at Central High, I actually was. Most of my siblings were in this program called Project Challenge, where you only had 12 to 15 kids in the classroom, and your grading scale was like 95 to 100 was an A. So we were having that kind of experience you needed, to get. So that was that. Yeah, it was. We were in an urban school, so you had urban stuff to deal with. There was the guns, there was the weed, there was the fights. There was
that
all
crossroads
that.
of Dexter and Linwood.
Correct. I mean, come on now. I was between Dexter and Linwood. That was some.
Oh my God.
That was 3 rough blocks you had to walk to get home between Dexter and Linwood, but. You get 2 types of education. I got a great education from the Detroit public school system growing up, but I also got an education of being a Detroiter in the streets. You cannot live, even middle class or whatever, you cannot live in Detroit and not get the education of what's happening in the streets and be safe. There's no way. So I learned both. You had to learn both.
And as you talk about that, I often get into these discussions with friends that are from other school systems and everything, and they talk about what should be in the school system, and this should be there, and this should be there. And I'm like, yo, man, some of the street shit, depending upon the life that this kid is going to continue to live,
right,
is a survival instinct you're learning. Like, I was sitting one time with a group of kids when I was at one of the last chance schools. And the kids were just talking about, like, looking at somebody's hands and telling what drugs they're using.
Wow.
And I was like, man, this is like some old drug counselor type stuff. But in reality, I'm like, that could be the difference between knowing if somebody's tweaking, knowing if somebody's playing, knowing, you know, how to engage what's happening and what's going on.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and even knowing the sounds of your street, you know?
Yeah.
And knowing what sounds normal and what doesn't sound normal, and knowing where to go and where to run, knowing the people on your street, knowing what people are into, all of that.
Yeah.
I mean,
like, here we go. Here's a classic one. I was with my friend Sterling at one of my accounts the other day.
Yeah.
And it was like a little tussle between some kids. And then I was like, oh man, it's just kids fighting. It's cool. And this is just like so long, because this is just, you know, growing up in these environments, as you talk about, like, guns existing. Generally, like, you'll hear a fight and then everything gets silent.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, you better start ducking. You know? Because it's like, oh, the fight has turned into gun being drawn.
Bigger, yep.
So, like, and this is just, as you talk about, like, hearing the sounds.
Yes, there are certain
and
sounds,
knowing that, like, okay, someone is about to get shot, and that could be me. So this is my protocol.
Yep.
Now, I'm in the house, duck, get right from the window.
Even hearing sounds of the change in how people are talking to each other.
Yeah.
Even from that, I mean, but I don't think all of that. I think that's an education. That's a secondary education that came from being where I was. But again, Detroit Public School, I got a well-rounded education, from music to art to math to all of that. I'm glad I went to Central. And my cast technician friends, you know, I'm glad
Shout
you got
out
to
to
go.
them too.
Yeah.
Who were some of your favorite teachers at Central?
I'm going to name two. One was the math teacher. The other was my music teacher. So my math teacher, Miss Whitaker, I went from trigonometry all the way to calculus 3 with her. I mean, I've had other teachers, but that was someone that I would go to on a regular basis, and just she was brilliant. Hard as nails, but brilliant. And my music teacher, Mr. Nicholson, just really taught me a lot, not only about music. He used to give me symphony tickets every other Friday to go and see the symphony. And I already like classical music, but that really just, it really just opened up a world for me to be able to go into this space where maybe little brown black kids don't go and sit and be with adults and be with different people of economic status and hear Tchaikovsky and Wagner and all of that and know what it is, because I have a teacher that taught me that and then wanted me to have access to it. So definitely a good teacher, good man.
So Central over to where?
From Central to Western Michigan and Kalamazoo. And then from there, I actually came back to Detroit like most people, and you kind of like, okay, I went to school, now what? I had those years where you're just floundering about. You don't know what you want to do with yourself. And
all right, now as you talk about that, it's many younger people in that space, like, you know, out of college, maybe even out of high school, out of a trade school, just in that age range where they're living with their parents.
Yep.
It seems like, every other kid is, I don't know, living like silver spoons or something. And it's like, damn, why
are you
sitting
struggling?
Here?
Right.
Yeah, why am I struggling?
Yeah.
What was your mentality and state, and what were you working on during that creative?
To be honest, that was a very tough time for me, like between college and I'd say maybe like 26, 27, 28, from dealing with depression, which being a kid that coming from the disciplined house I came from, being black, things like therapy and all those kind of things, they were a little bit of taboo to it, especially in the 90s. People are a little bit more open about it now.
Yeah.
But then it was a little bit taboo, and it was hard because at least my mental capacity was something I was always sure about, and it was getting tested and tried and broken and all of that. So even your mental capacity and your intellect is not always shored up, and that was a lesson I learned from that. But anyway, during that time, with that and just not knowing what I'm going to do with my life, and you go away from college and you're kind of by yourself, and you're being an adult, you're taking care of responsibility. You come back and then you're back into this kind of your parents' house. That's a lot of, I don't know what I would do. So creatively, I wasn't doing anything creative
because of the expression. Now, what was stifled just due to the reflection of yourself.
Yeah.
And why
point
do you
blank
think,
period.
As I run into a lot of younger people in that range.
Yep.
Why do you think so many young people put that pressure on themselves at that young age to, because I felt it too, like that I have to reach this goal of success, as if it's like somebody like a finishing line rope at the end of 30 or something. Like you gotta cross it and you gotta have this and this will happen and that'll happen.
I really think that consciously or subconsciously, America has created this narrative or these rules of what you're supposed to do. So you go to high school, you go to college, you get your degree, you get a job, you get married, you have some kids, and your life is going to be grand. That's what I think. And I think we all believe that. But from jump, once you got in college and it didn't take you 4 years to finish, it took you 6. They already, that whole dream start to crack.
Now when you talk about that dream, and you said we all sort of believe it, is that explicitly, is that implicit? Like, do you think that some of that is just subconscious? Like, how much of that, as we definitely know, it's like a overarching society that's pushing that narrative, but how much is that in the back of my mind? Just period, just like
I really think it is genetically ingrained in American society, even if we don't say it. I think now it's kind of, those threads are coming to loose, but I do think it's genetically ingrained that this is what all this is for. But there are so many things that we weren't told when you went to college, that 4 years, you're not getting out in 4 years unless you go the whole time, right? Unless you have some kind of incoming resource that falling out of the sky, who knows? I mean, that's one thing. Who told you that what you majored in, the 9 out of 10 times your job is not going to be connected to what you just spent 4 or 5 years, learning? Most of us, right? All those things. That relationship that you thought you were going to marry that girl or that guy, most likely that ain't going to happen. I mean, it's all these things that I think were written in a fairy tale structure that nobody really told you, hey, yeah, that's the optimal thing, but here's what happens with 80% of us. And you got to be okay with this thing. It's okay between the ages of 21 and 28 not to know what the hell you want to do. I mean, those kind of things are, I wish there was more honesty about what life really truly looks like, and more honesty that there is no finish line at 30 or 32. I mean, there's
40,
I know
50,
40,
60,
50.
70.
I know women that are just trying to grab partners to have kids. I mean, I know biologically there are some limitations, but trying to grab a partner just to have kids so that they can, for womanhood experience or what, I'm like, we have created a structure of rules that just need to be reevaluated and changed, and I think that age range is one where you can get lost or you can catapult, and it really is. And I think it's almost like being in the middle, and you're in the middle of moving from child to adult, truly are. And I just think you get thrown aside because you're not 15 and you are 21. You do have a job, you might have some adult-like experience, but really, I need help finding out who the heck I am. I don't know who I am. What am I supposed to do with this? So I think that's what happened. I think those rules need to just be get rid of them, and in that time frame what you should be doing is creating vision, creating goal, and finding out who you are. So when you hit maybe the early 30s, you're like, man, I got it. I mean, sometimes some of us don't hit it till we get in our 40s, 50s, whatever. But I think there's these things where people like, oh, you get married, you get your job, and you get your education in your 20s. Like, you don't even know who the hell you are in your 20s. So how are you supposed to be creating that kind of structure? I think we need to be a little nicer to ourselves in that time frame.
I feel you on it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your creative flow. As you're like me in the sense of you have many different disciplines. Graphic design, video.
Yep.
You work with many creatives.
Yep.
What steered you in this space that you and I are like, more so? I rarely meet people. And the number one question as I think society sometimes forces us into this, like you say, like that age range. Because when you're 23 and you're starting to do what we do. Like it's like, man, I just like spending like 7 hours on Photoshop yesterday. And it's like, what's Photoshop? This 1998. So this is Photoshop 2. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, man, I spent about 7 hours on Photoshop playing around with this Redman album cover, seeing if I could change them around. That's what I was doing yesterday. That's not as clearly defined as like, I'm an engineer.
You're right.
You know what I'm saying? So a person immediately asks, what do you do?
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, damn, I don't even know how to answer that question.
I totally hate that question because I can't.
Like the definition of like, I just learned what your name is, but I'm about to quantify the value of who you are based on you giving an answer to what do you do?
Yeah, you're right, I do a lot of different things, from graphic to design to strategist to project management to I'm a artist, meaning a visual artist. I write. I'm definitely a left brain, right brain person. I went to school for engineering, but I'm also this artist, right? So when people ask you what I am, I think I'm most comfortable saying I'm an artist, I'm a storyteller, I am a builder of platforms for people to speak, to be seen, to be heard. I complete stuff. That's really an important part of that. I think of stuff and I complete stuff. So that's me.
So in this journey to completing stuff, when did it start like clicking that, oh, this is what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna work on this project with this company, then this organization, then this person,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe myself. When did this all start coming together?
I think really not until so developing projects. I don't think that really started happening until maybe 2005, 2006.
Okay.
I was a graphic designer before that. So you give me a task, I create what you wanted me to create, and then I became like a graphic design manager for Detroit Public Library. But my career took me to Houston, where I became a brand manager, where the strategies and marketing and the creativity really came together. It infused. And that was the first time where I could totally use both sides of my brain. And a lot of the things I was developing were these projects that in the whole were creating this this brand or personality or this experience, which was Houston Public Library. So I think that I really saw the power of project development. I saw the power of creating experiences. I saw the power of collective storytelling and even just getting community together so that they can interact with each other and letting them take what they've learned and seen or expressed and taking it out into the community and sharing about, at least with this thing, that Houston Public Library experience. And so that's where I really started. And then I was like, I can take this same thing. While I was there, that's when a lot of things were happening here in Detroit with this transition. At the time, Kilpatrick was the mayor. And there was a lot of different things happening with that. I was hearing about, this different insurgents and different transitions that were happening in Detroit. And here I am in Houston building, I'm building community, building experiences, building an organization in a way in Houston. It's like, I want to take that back home and do the same thing. So that's what I did. Took what I learned from Houston, came back here and started developing projects with all the different narratives that I saw was missing. Using art, that's what I started doing. So
this is such a cool interview for me, just because so much of your story, it colors in the lines into my story, in the sense of like, those 20s, and feeling my way through, on so many different things. Those things now, it's like Mr. Miyagi, like a ghost of Mr. Miyagi. Like, you don't even know how
ghosting exactly
that you learn,
right?
That I learned working at Pizza Hut at 23.
It's going to help you.
Is going to be something I apply to what I do with my marketing firm today.
Absolutely.
The flow of people,
minor things like I have this book that I carry around everywhere. I write my list of what I'm doing that day in that book. But the way that I do this book, or the way I write my list, the way I take, just the process of it came from people that I met in different jobs. Like, just meeting people have changed how I work or changed how I create. And so all of that. I guess the thing is, don't take, everything is important. Everything you can learn from, everything, nothing is minute. I don't think maybe I couldn't have built like I built without having these processes that I used in this book that I learned from a person that just happened to be sitting in a meeting with me, right? So all of that, all those connections, everything you do is needed for you to get to where you need to go.
Wait, now you just dropped a gem. So basically, you've developed a workbook.
Oh, yeah.
From working with people.
Oh, absolutely.
And you just ask them a little bit about their process.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And you like filter out like, okay, I can apply that. I like that.
Absolutely.
So it's like, whatever, Keisha Johnson and you know, that I met in a meeting does bop, 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 bop.
Yep.
And I mean, you ever use that?
Yep. I mean, I think it's so important to. You can learn. I mean, it sounds so cliche, but it is so real. You can learn from anybody, anything, but you got to be open to it. And I think that goes back to like this Cass Central thing. You know, Cass has this reputation of building these very bright, intelligent, creative people, and there's truth to that. But that doesn't mean that Central doesn't create that, and that you can't get unique, creative, intellectual, creative stuff from there too. So it's kind of like that thing. You can't just look at a person and say, this is a person I'm going to learn stuff from, because then you might miss old dude that stands in front of the store that, you know, have his beer bottle in the bag, that he might have the one link that you need in order to get to wherever else you need. So yeah, it's important. Take it all in. It's just important to take it all in and don't think anything is minute and that you can't learn from anything and everything.
So with that, right now, and you still travel.
Yeah.
But Detroit today.
Mm-hmm.
What's your temperament like? How do you feel about the opportunities for you and what you do here and the people you're working with, the projects you've worked on, future projects that you'd like to work on?
Mm-hmm.
What role will Detroit play in that?
Okay, wow, that's when I was away, I felt so strongly that I wanted to be back home doing things for my hometown. And if I have a talent, I want it to happen and use it in Detroit. That was so important to me. And it still is, because I'm pretty sure my base will always be here, but it's so important for me to travel. But my base is here, so I want to make sure that I give back to. I wouldn't be me if I didn't live in Detroit, right? So I want to give back. But the importance has changed a little bit for me. I think it's more important to be a good human being to other human beings, and that I want my work to be about human beings. So initially, a lot of my projects were very, very Detroit focused, from Middle Detroit, which was a short film interview thing that focused on middle class Detroiters, that, to Door Project, which was transforming of doors into art by local artists, and just certain exhibitions that were really about Detroit and building it up. And in doing that, I started meeting other people from different places, and I did this poster exhibition where there were over 100 posters, and a lot of the people were from different countries, and that opened me up. And I just yesterday I got an email from someone I met through this process. Her name is Floor. She's from Australia. The first time I talked to her, we talked about her kid, my life, and all of that. And now I have a friend in Australia that emails me and just say, I thought about you. So, but that all came from project development and the artwork. So now it's like I want to keep building platforms, because there's definitely certain people that don't have one to speak and to create. So that's important. And this will be my base, but it's so much more important that I'm a human being creating human being experiences than it is about Detroit.
And as you talk about experiences, that's like the pulse of a lot of this creativity.
Yeah.
As we touched on this, and we're wrapping up this interview, but
okay.
We touched on this, and I want you to kind of expand. As creatives right now, the opportunities to make content are abundant. Video, graphic design, photography, animation, is needed in such a level right now to just grab the attention of people, whether it be for Instagram, Facebook, or ad campaign, or for so many things. It could be for a brand. It could be, a person's brand. It could be to sell a product or service. It could be for an organization to raise funds. Like the skill sets we have are expanding.
Right.
Now, with these skill sets, the science of it is still the intentionality of engaging people. But people want to engage to experience.
Right.
So with these tools that are designed under the premise of making us more sociable, we're becoming less and less interactive, which is kind of laying it at the feet of us as creatives to design an experience that's artificial. Like, it's like we're like, people are like, I want to connect to more people. So it's like, all right, so let me create an artificial experience for you to engage someone else.
To give you permission to engage, right?
Yeah. So how do you feel about what's beginning to happen as just explicitly right now? It may be one of the I don't even know what to say about all this stuff with our current president. The last presidential election, it's explicitly known that through bots buying Facebook ads with some form of Russian influence, influenced our election. Yeah.
So one thing, just to talk about that, knowledge is power, right? And if we would stop using social media as the only way of getting knowledge and content, and actually read for ourselves, research for ourselves, and all of that, those things, whether it's true or not, well, we know it's true, but with the ads and all that happened in our election, would not have had such a placeholder, because we would have had the structures in our life to get knowledge ourselves and not just believe everything we read and see that happen on social media. So that's one thing. I think too, social media makes it easier to not engage, right? I could say what I wanted and I can run over here and you can't talk to me, you can't say anything for me. I think
it's not a natural discourse. It's like to walk in the bar and say, look,
right, let's sit and chill and have a conversation.
America great again.
Right.
Then someone will say, okay, so at what point was America great? And then at what point did America not be great?
I think.
But I'm just saying that those questions would be posed.
Yeah, you can have
to
conversations.
The person, if, I can make a post about something,
right, and then move on.
Yeah, whereas in real life, I'm dealing with a.
And when you're one-on-one, you should. I mean, when you're talking to somebody, right? I think that's when humanity comes out. Whereas when you're just posting, I mean, not saying you can't have a human experience. I met my friend in Australia through, this whole, social media. I think we have to put it in its place. I just think that the pendulum has gone too far as using social media as the communication and connector. And we have gotten away from connecting just as human beings on a day-to-day basis the way that we should be. I mean, have you been in a restaurant? You'll see people at a table, right? They're there to connect with each other, right? And they are on the frickin' phone. They're not even talking to the person that's across from them. So I think all this technology is wonderful. It allows us to do what we do. It makes us closer to people that are in Cuba and certain parts of Africa that we probably wouldn't have had that connection to, right? But at the same time, you still need to be able to just pick up a phone and call a friend, go out and have tea and have a one-on-one, have a conversation with someone that doesn't agree with you. Living in Texas, I I guess if I want to categorize myself, I'm a Democrat. I don't know if I'm all that liberal or conservative. That doesn't matter to me. But to live in a place like Texas where there's a lot of things I didn't agree with, and people would say, but I could have those conversations and still love the people that said it, that's an important experience for me. So when I come back here and it's more homogenous thinking, and I'm like, well, I get you, but I actually have somebody I love here, right, that thinks different than you, but I still love them for who they are. And it's like those kind of things. But I don't think social media would allow that kind of social media alone can allow that kind of experience. So yes, we're creating these events and experience to give people permission to socialize and to connect. I think we have to do that until it normalizes again, to where connecting is a regular part of our life. I think as creatives, that's what we're doing. We have to normalize socializing again.
Wow. Ain't that something?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but hey.
Get a friend instead of a friend's
list.
A
friend. Both are awesome,
I got
but
5,000.
Yeah, I got 5,000 friends listed. But
I have no friend to go out with.
When you're in that, I'll say this.
No friend to go to a party with.
I'll say this and then whatever. I am and was a fan of Anthony Bourdain. I mean, you could see that how raw and beautiful this person was, and that's those kind of things. Like, his life was so unique and different from so many people. There wasn't someone there that could connect with him, and that he could talk to on that level. And even though all this love that people,
it almost ends up being like having a friend. You can almost have an emotional breakdown, or you can.
Yes.
Or I could almost have an emotional breakdown. Like somebody sincerely calling, like, "How are you doing?"
Yes.
And it's like, okay, what this person doing?
Yes.
And it's like, no, how are you doing?
How are you doing?
And it's like, what do you want? And it's like, no, I called
really
specifically to just know.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
And I part
and
of
like,
my
oh man, I'm about to have an emotional breakdown. This person even cares about me.
Yes. and to me, for me, my lifestyle, my creativity, all of that allows me space to actually stop. When somebody runs in your mind, like a friend runs in your mind, I call, I text, I email, say, hey, you just ran through my mind. I just want to see how you are. And hey, if we can talk later today, let's do that. My lifestyle allows for that kind of connectivity, but that should be something we all have, because I see how it makes my life a lot better. I create better. I can connect better. It's too much loneliness in this world with all this connectivity. It makes absolutely no sense. It's a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot of just, it's a lot of people, even in, as you say, like, out together to eat, and then the phone.
You're on your phone.
Or like many of the distractions, or I guess
distractions. Oh my gosh.
What you say, you don't like clutter, but the clutter. Because the clutter can distract you.
Yes. Yeah. But it's hard the distractions keep you from looking at all the stuff that you got to look at and clean up and fix and solve, right? Yeah. So if you're distracted with your phone and with music and with radio, with doing 18,000 things, it's easy to say, I can't take care of my soul, my spirit, when you got all these other things that seem priority because they're more tangible, right? But when you get rid of all that and it's just you in a room, you and her in a room, you or him in a room, right? What else you gonna do? You gotta connect.
And life, as you grow older, it becomes that. As I'm transitioning and looking at some of my biggest heroes, sheroes, as they get older, like my Uncle Edgar, 97, like you think about, and man, Uncle Edgar's story is deep. Like he went to Tuskegee.
Oh, okay.
Poultry science, to the point where he actually was one of his assignments through one of his agricultural classes was to give chicken livers to George Washington Carver. So he had a
Wow.
personal relationship with George Washington Carver.
That's history right there.
Yeah. So, but at 97, he's just spending time with my cousin Edgar, like with his son, as his son kind of cares for him. Like we're gonna end up in a space as we grow older.
Yeah.
If we're given the blessing of growing older, where we definitely will come face to face with it's you in your life.
Right.
Those distractions,
they're gone.
Yeah.
So can you live with yourself? It becomes that's the question. Can you live with yourself? So all the stuff you're doing, yes, it's important. But the bottom line is, can you live with yourself? And that means loving yourself. That means being real with yourself. And the only way you can know that is get rid of all the distractions and really be with you. And I think loneliness goes away with that. I think a lot of the things that hurt and painful things, they go away when you can learn how to be okay with you. And I'm not saying that's easy, because it ain't. That's not easy. But it is necessary. And that's what's all the stuff that's going on in the world is we've distracted ourselves. We're scared to look at ourselves deeply and accept the cracks and all that kind of stuff, and then do the work to become better human beings. Yeah.
I love it. Like it definitely is the humanity of it.
Yep.
Which closes on the three questions I always ask with Detroit is Different, which definitely goes to a material thing that I think put Detroit on the map. What was your very first car?
My very first car, believe it or not.
What was the year, make, and model? What year did you get it?
Okay, my first car was a 2000 Ford Focus. Okay. It was silver. Okay. I love that little thing. Yeah, that's my first car.
Where did you? That was like one of the first ones. Where did you go when you first got it? What was your first ride?
Oh, that is so crazy. I literally think I drove to my parents' house.
And showed them the ride?
Yeah. Yep.
Look. Your dad was looking outside like, who is that?
Most likely, he probably was with me.
Yeah, that is that old school dad.
Yeah.
Make sure even though it's new.
Right.
You gotta make sure they, classic Detroit. Can't make your car on a Friday or a Monday. What day did they make this car? You gotta make sure you get a car that was built on a Wednesday. You know how the plant be drunk on a Friday.
I'm pretty sure he probably was with me, but I know that was the first place I went. Yeah.
Old school Detroit. Yeah, it's been I don't even know how true it is, but all those old school dudes say don't ever buy a car that was built on a Friday or a Monday. My dad's not a car person. He's from Alabama, but he is definitely old school pops. Dude. Yes. Yeah, he be taking advantage of my baby girl.
Yeah.
All right. So after that, you're the DJ at the end of the fireworks. You're at Jefferson and Woodward. You get to play 3 songs. What 3 songs are you playing?
That is DJ at the end of fireworks. For 3 songs I would play. That is so hard. I listen to a lot of stuff. People might not like this, but there's this artist named Glenn Hansard from Ireland. He has a song that's called Time Will Be Your Healer. Okay. Once again, that's one song. Alabama Shakes, Don't Want to Cry No More. Okay. And then the third, D'Angelo. Gotta go to D'Angelo. Anything he wrote.
Anything? If you're giving it to me, I will pick It's Alright from Brown Sugar.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. I love that brother. He needs to do another one real soon. Okay. But there's other ones. Raphael Sadiq, I could have gone all over the place.
Oh, yeah. Africa.
Yeah, oh my God. Just so much. Thelonious Monk. 3 songs ain't enough.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to have to kick you out as DJ. You gonna get the Stevie Wonder set. It's like, all right,
Mm-hmm.
lights up. So, last question.
Yep.
You can rename Woodward after one Detroiter. Who would it be and why?
Rename Woodward after one Detroiter? Oh. I think I would go with Gilda Snowden. Artist, female,
Oh, yeah.
changed a lot of I did an exhibition with women that were taught by her, and to see how much she's put into Detroit by teaching has been amazing. So I think that would be the person I would name the street after, Gilda
Dope.
Snowden.
One of her proteges is one of my closest of homies. Always off the chain.
Yeah.
I need to get her back. The great Jay Rainey.
Oh, okay.
Finding
Gotcha.
Mona Lisa 313.
Yeah.
Jay is so loud. It's just like, God, what is that? It's like, Jay, hey, it's like, calm down.
Yeah. I mean, she's left some beautiful energy here.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, that would be it.
she's one of her many mentees.
Yes. That's a lot out there, and they're strong and beautiful.
Yeah. And last, how do people get in contact with you? Find out what you're doing. I've seen the door exhibit just myself through some work I'm doing. That's amazing. It's some real cool doors.
I appreciate that, and that's all from local artists here in Detroit. But to see that and other exhibits and other work, you can go to dmjstudio.com. You'll learn about me, my team, and all the stuff we're doing. And you can also, any from Twitter to any social media, DMJ Studio, you can find me with that as well.
Okay. There we go. Thank you so much.
Thank
so much.
you.
This was fun.
This was cool.
Yep. Peace.